Welcome to Accounting on Automation, the future of modern accounting podcast. If you're tired of endless spreadsheets, mundane month-end tasks, and manual workflows, you're in the right place. This is the podcast where we ditch the busy work and explore how automation is transforming modern accounting. From solutions that reconcile faster than you can say pivot table to AI that gives you insights before your coffee cools, we're uncovering accounting's best kept automation secrets. I'm M. Daigle, founder and chief automation officer of OTTO-MATES, a community for accountants focused on automation. Join me as we chat with finance innovators, tech trailblazers, and the occasional spreadsheet survivor to uncover how AI and automation are reshaping the numbers game. Because in a world of automation, the only thing you should be handling manually is your morning latte. Let's automate. Hey everyone, I am so excited to introduce Drew Carrick to our Accounting on Automation podcast. Some of you may have seen Drew featured as the Rapping CPA, which we'll dive into during the episode a little bit. But today we're going to focus on rebranding the accounting profession. So traditionally, we've gotten this unfair, bad rap, bean counters, pocket protectors, being too rigid, too risk averse. But we've got Drew here who is single-handedly attempting to flip the script. Drew, you've been mentioned or known as the Rapping CPA, which is definitely not a sentence most people expect to hear. Would love to hear a little bit about your story and how you went from a traditional accountant to building this sort of unique brand and voice.
Yeah. So, thanks first for having me. Appreciate Hubify making this thing happen. I think it's awesome that we have an automation community who are preparing for the future of accounting, which is, I'm not even going to say around the corner. It's on the block. It's coming down the block, and we're having the block party. So that's cool. And yeah, as far as myself, I always say, and anybody that's familiar with my story is like, oh, this guy always says this. I didn't pick accounting. Accounting picked me. And it was just one of those things where those of us who really enjoyed, I think, in math class, when we were solving for X, when we were able to balance things out and cancel things out on both sides of the equation. That same sense of odd joy that we got, it was the same sense we got from balancing things in accounting. When you had your early accounting classes, that theory, that's what I think got a lot of us into accounting and got a lot of us excited about accounting. And naturally, that just kind of progresses into your Big Four experience, which I worked at Grant Thornton and I was in audit. So I followed that whole track, worked in advisory. And that's when I started kind of getting recognized for being a little more creative and a little more innovative by the leadership there. And obviously, we'll eventually get into that. But I think like that creativity and that innovation is what's helped propel me to a world where accounting is the basis and that's the foundation. And we can kind of continue to move past that. And yeah, while I was working there, I'd always had this video creator, entertainer side to me. And I used to rap about, being in college. And then I wasn't in college anymore. I was working in public accounting in New York City. And so I started writing raps about working in accounting and working in auditing and client experiences. And it was something that was just very relatable to a lot of people in the profession. I was just putting something out there that made sense, but just nobody really did it because it was like, well, accountants don't make music. And I was like, well, I'm gonna make content. And the public accounting anthem came out. It was a big hit in the accounting world, and that sort of just got this thing going. And I became petty cash, the rapping CPA, and the rest was history. I mean, I could trace everything back to just the decision to be like, I'm going to make this video, the public accounting anthem. It will be the anthem of public accounting. Anybody that goes into the profession, like this is where they should be starting. And fortunately, it worked.
I love it. We should use that as maybe like the theme song for the podcast or something like that. The theme song for accounting in general. I love it.
It's been 10 years, so I think it is time. And I, if any company's interested in funding the creation of the 10-year anniversary, like we can do it the next iteration. Because that was, I mean, you got to think about it. We were still uploading downloading audit files, uploading audit files, sending the files. If it doesn't get opened in time, it expires. You got to re-download it, upload it, transfer it again. Totally different
Awful.
world that we're living in now. So I think it's time for part two. It's Mbop by Hanson. They did it Mbop
Yes.
2.0, and I'm like, now's the time.
This is the time. I like it. Maybe we can work something in with AI because we certainly didn't have
Exactly.
anything there. a lot of things around that. And maybe in the interest of automation, which is,
Yeah.
my favorite topic, of course. Um, what was your key turning point, or like at what point in your career? I know you and I've talked about this a little bit, but like, where did technology start to creep into what you were doing, and maybe thinking about how you do away with all of those things you rapped about 10 years ago?
I think so much of working early on in public accounting, especially for the large firms, what you get as an experience at large companies, and I've started to notice this across the board, whether it's your JP Morgans of the world or your long-term entities, your blue chip stock companies.
Yes.
The way that they sort of get into technology is like a very kind of slow paced. Accounting, I think, is the slowest paced version of that. And anybody who has an entry level position at any of these companies is, you went to college, you paid a lot of money for a degree, you became very smart in so many different areas, and then you come in and you do something pretty basic and you get paid pretty well to do it, but you're really not doing anything that complex. And I think I remember the aha moment for me about the potential of tech was sitting there sending out like 100 confirmations via, licking stamps and writing them physically out because that client wasn't on confirmation.com yet. And then like the invention of confirmation.com, which I think was around that time when I was working as an intern. So that's when I was doing it. And by the
Hmm.
time I was an associate, like everybody was using it. And I'm like, they're charging $125 to basically send an email. But
Hmm.
because you had done that like grunt work, that brutal experience of doing this very tedious and really feels somewhat insignificant, non-valuable activity and at work, I was like, that's how you can be creative and be innovative because you've done something, you felt the pain, and now you come up with this invention. And so I've always been kind of hyper fixated on like doing something, figuring out what's wrong with it, and then finding a way to do it better. And that could apply across the board. And obviously, technology was that natural next progression. The other thing, which was the like went hand in hand with this, is I remember hearing about, and I still don't know where the status of this is at this point, to be honest, like cloud-based auditing, right? Everybody who worked in auditing 10 years ago is so used to, like I said, downloading the file, you do all the work in it. Nobody else can touch the stuff that you're working on because you have that file. Then you attach everything into it, upload it back into the main file that somebody has to be the owner of, and then ship it off to, send it to the partner for review. Partner doesn't get it. It expires. You get an email a week later. Hey, where's the thing? You didn't send it. I was like, I sent it to you 2 weeks ago. You didn't open it in time. And it's just like, as opposed to just being able to be in like a Google sheet where everybody can go in there and just type away at the same time. And I think those were kind of like two of those very like early moments.
I think those are spot on. And for anybody who precedes those confirmation days, uh, myself included, we didn't ever even have the promise of anything being automated at that time. It was
Yeah.
literally writing them out by hand, and then receiving them, going down to the mailroom, receiving them, having to open
Hmm.
it up and see what, oh gosh, that's scary. Okay, well, let's jump in. If we think about the shifting of this profession, obviously, there's no doubt it's been changing. I think with so much around AI, and the barrier to entry of all of these new technologies is so much lower. Curious from your perspective, like, how do you think of this sort of culture, the shift from a cultural perspective? I think you're a perfect example of thinking outside the box, but like culturally, how do you think about the profession shifting?
So the cool thing about how my career has directed me, right, from just being creative is that I've gotten the opportunity to talk a lot about accounting. And I've gotten to, I mean, again, even from making a music video that in order to go viral, there has to be something about it that people feel compelled to want to share or to comment on because they can relate to it. So I feel like I've been so deep in the accounting profession as a whole, even when I'm not doing the actual accounting, but just talking to people who are my fellow accountants. And the theme that sort of really has risen to the top over the last 2 years, I would say, is that the work itself will be different. We're not going to be doing the same work that we were, and now we're just doing it faster. I genuinely believe there is just going to be a shift in what the work itself actually is. The analogy that I like to make, to break it down, is like there was mechanics for horse and buggies, right? And basically you were a mechanic, I guess, if you could, like, I don't know, fix the hooves on the
Yeah.
horse, right? And then there
Yeah.
was tires. And so it's a completely different job. Like, you can't necessarily take your skill of doing, fixing hooves to, rotating tires. Like, that's a different skill that you do need to learn. You need to understand, like, the premise of, like, okay, well, the road is a certain texture and this is how different substances impact it. But like the work itself is different. And I think accountants move into this financial systems administrator type of position. And I mean, there's a lot of folks, I think, in the fintech space who are saying, well, a journal entry it kind of just should happen on its own,
Yeah.
somewhat. Like, a transaction happens and then that should be accounted for, right? And it happens over here, and then you log it over there. And obviously there's going to be that review and that oversight because of the different technical rules of, like, is this going to qualify for revenue recognition purposes? You obviously need to factor in the contract, but at this point, like, contract can get scanned, it can be very quickly summarized, you can very quickly just review it. Doing the actual accounting, I think, becomes like a 20% or less portion of the job, and 80% kind of moves into more so just financial system operator and administrator and manager.
Yeah. I think that whole shift too there's sort of like a personality change that might really come
Mm.
about through all of this. The reason I say that, I think that the idea of what accountants had as a bad rap probably came from a certain place at some point in time. I mean, literally before computers, there was like that sheet of paper where people would write in the journal entry
Yep.
and there would be a debit and a credit. So, of course, that required somebody with certain skills and personality to want to do that and stick with it. I love that now we've got more creativity. I mean, you yourself, right?
Yeah.
You've brought humor and music and all of these great things into the space as well. But I think it's going to shift the personality completely for those in the profession too. The things you just named are very different than, even 15 years ago what we were tasked to do. So thinking about that, like, have you seen a shift in how people are, especially young professionals, right, or even kids in college, what they're thinking about what a career in accounting really looks like?
I honestly think it's on us right now. I think the opportunity is there. And I think it's like the students are there ready for it, but we have to show them, and we can attract them. And I completely agree that the type of personality that will be needed to be an accountant in the future is going to be different than the type of personality that was needed to be accountant then. Now, as the brand as a whole, the reason I say, like, it's on us is somebody took a picture in 1985 of an accountant doing work with like an actual ledger and a pen with bleeding out the pocket, and he's got his visor on and he's calculating stuff, tabulating on a calculator. And that picture just stuck, and that was the only picture, because then we got computers, and unfortunately, and I know this from making content about accountants, it's very difficult to show you doing the accounting work, right? Like,
Yeah,
like, it's
that's
a
a good
video of
point.
me on a video or a picture of me on a computer. Like, that could be anything. I could be online shopping. And so it's very difficult to show what it is. So what other professions did is they created a personality that shows. So, in finance or investment and banking and stuff like that, like, at this point, you could have somebody that's got like a Zin and a vest, and they've got like this a certain hairdo, and they've got that certain headset, and that's what it came to represent. Now, anybody can wear that, and anybody who works in business could wear that, but that became associated with being, an investment banker or a financial analyst or something like that. And we just never really did anything to show that accountants are not that person from that picture from 1985 anymore, and they're different. And so with the new generation coming in, I think it really is important that we as a profession, and that's from each state chapter to the AICPA and every organization in between, make a conscious and active effort to show these kids who are coming up, like, no, 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 that's very outdated. This is what it's going to look like in the future. In fact, I would go as far to say accounting and finance are going to merge together, and you're going to be more qualified to be that finance bro if you take the accounting route than just kind of taking the what I call the lazy way out is going the finance route.
Yeah.
So
Our
I always put
finance
accounting
listeners
as
will not love that.
no, I know, but I always put accounting as like the most difficult of the majors. That's what you strive for, and if you can't handle it, you drop out and you go into finance. And if you can't handle that, you drop out and go into like marketing and management. Ironically, I work primarily in marketing at this point, but it is just one of those things. So I really think it's on us because I can sense from the conversations that like the desire is there, but it's
Mhm.
still attracting the people. It's if we still maintain it being a profession that attracts people who are like risk averse and are looking for like the solid, concrete, reliable job and reliable role, you're going to end up with those same people who then you're at the danger of if for some reason it gets in their minds that their job is not safe anymore because AI is automating it all, then you're going to have nobody who goes into it and they're like, well, what's the point? Like that's just going to be an irrelevant major that nobody majors in anymore. And so I think it's really important we get out in front of that and say, no, 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 we are the official users of all financial systems. That's what the future of the profession is going to be, and that's what you can be, and you could be at the forefront of that, and you have a major opportunity, especially even like small firm owners. Like you've got to think about, and I think about this when I'm here in my, when I go to my parents' retirement community in Florida, and I'm like, all these people who, a lot of them are accountants, they have firms and wealth management and bookkeeping and tax practices. They're going to have to eventually roll over that book of business somewhere. And think about how much more efficient you as a young person can get stuff done than how slow it takes your parents to get things done just because you're tech savvy. Like you can double the revenue almost within a year just by implementing technology that you know how to use. So I think there's like a huge opportunity, and that's the selling point that we really need to get across.
I love that. And I think I love the idea of just shifting how we are perceived. I'm a big stickler on maybe I'm not your most typical accountant that might be a little more introverted. I'm far more extroverted. But everybody loves to have a good time.
Mhm.
Everybody wants to feel productive and excited and fulfilled. And so I think the things you just mentioned, especially about where you focus your not just your efforts, but what your subject matter expertise is. It's not just debits and credits anymore. Those are going to be the automated things. But how can we become more strategic? What are those types of things that we can do? And I think on that, to that point, you know, one of the things when you and I have spoken is sort of this accounting mindset, that structured analytical way of thinking. How can we start using that? Like what's a way aside from the very obvious how that's played out in your own career, maybe for those who aren't necessarily looking for a career in
Creative.
social media or rapping, but some other maybe ideas that you've had or ways that it's impacted you where you can use those structured analytical sort of that mindset but use it in a slightly different way.
Yeah, I mean, first I would love for it so that we're not the anomalies. It's not like, oh, we have to I almost have to prerequisite. I know I'm not your stereotypical accountant.
Yeah.
And like we like the goal should be like I don't have to do that. It's like, oh no, there's people in every profession that are a little bit of everything. It's not this overwhelming stereotype. I think there's a way to be creative in and innovative outside of doing traditional entertainment creative, which
Mhm.
obviously is what I involve a lot of doing videos and social media and creating content. And I actually really enjoy that part too. And that's one of the things that I think early on when I left public accounting and I joined Long Island University as I was the director of academic budgets and grant compliance, which was basically
Mhm.
taking a whole bunch of stuff that needed to get done that nobody really knew how to do and saying you're going to do it. And so it's always very difficult for me to explain, my technical expertise because I was like, it's honestly just problem solving. It's figuring answers out just by using a logical mindset and taking like a very calculated approach to things, which from being, an auditor, you go into a business and in 2 months you have to know everything about the business. Like you do the walkthroughs and you understand the financials, you see how the money flows, and you kind of grasp that business. And then when you have enough of those, you're seeing things that work at different places and don't work at different places. You see the culture. When time are the people coming into the office? When are they leaving? How are they? What's the like the emotion of the people even too? Because you're interacting with some of them. Are they happy and chipper? Or are they kind of like pissed off and annoyed to be coming to work every day? And I think you take all of those different things that you learn from working in accounting and then you pull it together and you now have like a broader perspective than what anybody who's only ever worked in one company or has only ever experienced like one aspect of the business has. And one of my first main projects that I did when I worked at LIU was building an academic workload system. I mean, it was just a manual process of ensuring that every teacher was working the proper number of courses. And I very much so consider this like the accountant mindset. I worked with the IT team and the finance team and the registrar, and we pulled together a report that was going out to students for enrollment, worked with the deans to get input data from what teachers were going to be doing which classes, and
Mhm.
then incorporated into a system that I helped build with IT that very much so just said after a certain threshold, it was like Excel formulas that I was doing when I was building work papers in accounting, whereas like if the number of students exceeds this amount, that triggers it to flip to a full course. And if it doesn't, and it's 2 weeks before, then an automatic alert goes out to the dean to say, hey, if this doesn't get filled, your teacher's not going to have a full workload. That just counts as like a tutoring type of course. You have to get them another class, or you have to take two classes and consolidate them and then inform the students that, hey, that class has been eliminated. There's only going to be one left. And it was just kind of just for me, it seems so straightforward. It's just like you're taking buckets. It's like playing a game of, match the honey to the jar or something.
Yeah.
You just fill this jar up, fill that one up. Like you could almost visualize it. And for other people, it was just kind of this very abstract thing. And I very much so credit that to just the accounting mindset that I had to be able to do that. And then the biggest one, of course, is just from being professionally skeptical and being able to go into conversations from a due diligence standpoint. I mean, that's just one of those major skills.
Yeah. It's interesting. I think if I really started to appreciate all of the different things I could do with accounting when I got beyond college, beyond, and this is not a knock at public accounting, but beyond public accounting and the
Mm.
auditing aspect of it, and actually hands in the day to day, and exactly what you're saying, like problem solving and figuring out, okay, I'm doing this repetitive task, or I need to do this very manual task. There's got to be a better way. Like it just feels like naturally what you want to do is fix those things in whatever way you can. And ironically, it ends up being that you're working cross functionally with all the other team members to be able to build a solution. And so it's really interesting that that's really where the profession has gone to. And now we've got all these tools to be able to help us, and teams of service providers that can help guide us when we have gaps and we don't know what we're doing. So it's really sort of like pulling the space together in a pretty neat way. Curious from your perspective, for somebody listening, if they're kind of feeling stuck, maybe not feeling those aha moments or being able to clearly identify where there's something to be done, what are some things that you would suggest to them to be able to start exploring new ways to apply maybe some of these very critical skills that we have as accountants and finance professionals, but in these sort of like new or more creative ways?
I think, the thing you mentioned about being cross-functional is such a key part of that. That's a defining moment of my existence, I feel like. And whenever I approach different, roles and positions and engagements at companies, I was like, I'm not going to be the guy that's going deep down one single silo. It's like I have the ability to kind of touch on all of these things. And I think more
Mm-hmm.
accountants need to be aware that they do possess that and they have that. They've spoken to all parts of the business. They do understand a lot of different aspects. So you're not limited to just the traditional stuff that you've been told this is what you do. You just live in the spreadsheet and that's it. It's like you have a lot of knowledge outside of that. It's really cool, I think, when a lot of fintech companies appreciate those skills because they're usually founded by people who worked in the space in some capacity and they
Mm-hmm.
kind of are like, no, I want other people who think like this. And you just kind of give them the shove. Like my suggestion to business leaders is, of course, is like give those people the push because I think you'll be able to find a lot more value out of them than what the value on paper appears to be. But I think as far as when you're feeling stuck, it's fine. It's trying to figure out, I think, like what's the thing that makes you passionate and kind of drives you a little bit. And I had one somebody who was it was an intern of mine actually. He had reached out a couple of years later. It saw that I had been doing all these different things, and they're like, "How did you take your career in such that crazy direction? I kind of feel like I'm not enjoying myself right now working in it. Like I don't even know how to pivot." And I was like, "Well, what are you really interested in?" He's like, "Well, I'm in a band and I love making music." And I was like, "Well, this is crazy that you're saying this because I actually go to a workout class with this guy who's a drummer in a band and they tour every once in a while. And guess what? He works for Live Nation in the accounting department and the
Wow.
international ticket sales. And so this kid, who I was talking to, is like, "Yeah, I work in international tax." I'm like, "Do you realize the opportunity that you have to take your passion and be like, you can have a streamlined angle to get into international music and venues and stuff like that because you'll understand how, if Taylor Swift has to tour in another country, like what's the tax implications behind that, right? Professional
Yeah.
athletes, it's the same sort of thing. So there's a way to take that passion that you have and incorporate it into whatever you're doing. And that sort of, I think, can give you a renewed excitement. Like if I could go back now and do my early accounting career, understanding the different directions that I have these passions and interest in and approach it from that stance, like I would be so much more engaged in the work I was doing because I would kind of have an idea of the end result of all these efforts. It's not going to just do monkey work. I'm not just it's just to get a paycheck and that's it. It's like, no, I'm doing this with purpose because this is going to be my way in to whatever these future passions that I'm kind of searching for are. And out in LA, like I always knew I wanted to be in sketches and there's people I grew up watching on YouTube who now I hang out with and they're friends of mine in LA, who have built massive followings and built some of the best content, like stuff that were cultural moments to me that I now got to participate in because I was the finance guy who came in from that angle. And it's just that I think it really attests to like, this is a great foundation to use and you can pivot in any direction wherever your passion is.
So awesome. I'll have to hit your Rolodex up to see if you know Ryan Gosling because you can give him my number. Joking.
Sure.
Um, that being said, I there's something to the passion piece of it, and I feel strongly about that. That's what got me into doing and creating and founding OTTO-MATES because I have that strong passion for bringing accountants together with solutions and figuring out how you can match up almost like a matchmaker, I guess, between these problems and these solutions. And it's kind of, it just hit me as you were talking, like that's what I did. But I had to go through those pain points. I had to understand what that was. And I had the luxury over a number of years to be able to go through and do all of that so that I understood what the need was. And now I can take that and be creative in creating a community of accountants and try and flip the script, try and give us a new identity and a new personality around everything and really change the stereotype. It's important to me because I've seen it and felt it. But here's why is the same mission so important to you? We're just doing it in slightly different ways.
Yeah. I what was the question?
Just why is the like your mission and
Mm.
what you're doing, like why is it so important to you? Like you've been in the seat too, maybe it's very similar and it's just coming out of that, but to the extent where I
Mm.
may have created a community, you're kind of creating a community, but yours isn't much more of an online presence, and I certainly have no business singing or rapping, but just kind of curious from your perspective what your mission is.
Yeah, I felt like there was, as with anything, there's always a gap in the market, if you will. And I remember early on, actors, videographers, editors are kind of a dime a dozen. They're especially you go to a city like Los Angeles and they're everywhere. And I had grew up on like Weird Al and then eventually like Lil Dicky later on, right? And so I was always making parody songs and finding like what's my own niche and little area to kind of talk about. And I think we kind of touched on it earlier. There is no accounting, like famous accountant. Like there's no big celebrity. Right now everybody's talking about the
Oh,
accountant too, and
Ben
like Ben
Affleck,
Affleck.
yeah.
And it's like, and of course, like everybody's like, well, it's cool that they're shedding light on our existence, but it's nowhere accurate. And I think everybody knows it's sort of dramatized. It doesn't make it like kind of cool. Yet still, people still believe that lawyers are, for the most part in these really intense courtroom cases, and they say just something so mind-blowing that the jury's like, oh my gosh, like, yes, like it's, 12 Angry Men or something, right? And it's just,
Mhm.
it's not actually the case. And I felt like I could try at least to become that person, right? Be a visual representation. In film, we have this common phrase called show, don't tell. And to my point earlier, it's very difficult for accountants to show. We could tell people, and when we tell people, they don't listen. So the best way is to show people, but it's very difficult to show because you can't really show what it is that we do. So what do? You have to create some persona. So I created that alter ego, like this petty cash, the rapping CPA persona. And then I just became the embodiment of it. So everywhere I go, and I visited Fort Worth, I was in New Orleans, I'm here in Florida. Every city that I stop at, I always make it known that it's like, oh, CPA, but also rapper. And then people are naturally going to ask a follow-up question about how does that happen? And then that just gives you the opportunity to have the floor to kind of explain, like, no, there's a shift happening in the accounting profession. Like there's a lot more accounts out there that do have really cool personalities and are interesting people and aren't going to fall into that old archaic stereotype that you probably envision them. Oh, that's the person I dump my taxes off to, in January every single year. There's a whole bunch to it. So I feel like if nobody does it, like, so it's the why not me. If
Yeah.
somebody's got to do it, and it's like, why not me? And I can, get on LinkedIn and toot my horn and say everything, blah, blah, blah. But I was like, I'd rather just become that person and be the example. And then other people get inspired by it. And it might only be one person at a time. I have a conversation sitting at the barber, the kid next to me. He's like, oh, actually, I'm going to start studying for the CPA exam soon. Can I actually get on a call with you? Because I think it's really cool what you've been doing. And I was like, I will happily share my story as many times as I need to share it if it will impact one person and make them feel like, okay, I got something out of that. I have a little more insight about how I'm going to approach my career, how I can be more excited about working in public accounting or working my staff accounting job because I can see how eventually it'll be useful based on the things that you're talking about.
I love that you're the face of this shift and taking the bull by the horns. Have you experienced any resistance along the way because you are pushing these boundaries and you're stepping outside the box so far? Have you run into resistance? Are people open to it? What does that look like?
I think everybody, for the most part, is they're kind of professionally skeptical about it, right? Is the way to put it. Like there's some people who are really hype. I remember speaking at the Fort Worth chapter's event last summer. They had a members event for the CPA Society there. And they were all super hype on it, right? They're actively doing things to try to get that. I think you have leadership in other organizations that are a little more traditional. They're kind of sticking to like the old boys club method and approach there. And I mean, I've spoken to friends like, at your JP Morgans of the world who work in accounting there that are kind of like low key, if they wanted to get rid of my job, like they could probably automate this in like three of our positions and just have one person review the work that AI does if you did this.
Mhm.
I honestly think they're only not doing it for like from political pressures or just from like optics of being like, yeah, we didn't lay off 70% of our workforce. And then, imagine a large enterprise company did that, there'd be like a mass fallout where people would be like, "Oh my gosh, none of us are safe. Like this is it. Pensions are gone, Social Security gone. Like it would be a total fallout." Um, so yeah, I mean, it's just there's a lot of people I think who are resisting the change because they're kind of accounting traditionalists and fundamentalists, and they're like, no, like we need to understand like the basics and the ins and the outs. And I was like, you learn that in college, like you'll get your principles down, like you'll understand it, but we have to evolve. Like there's not a choice
Yeah.
anymore. It's not optional. And for the people who are resisting it, it's the people that aren't going to be bluntly aren't going to be around long enough to see the end results of the change needing to happen. So
Yeah, I believe the same. I think those who resist too much are going to be left behind. I think this is the time. And I think for all those people who are admitting that, oh, my job could be eliminated, well, then figure out another way to stay employed. Use your
mm,
open time, your saved time, and dive into other areas, other, whether it's cost savings, strategic initiatives, whatever it might be. But I think there's certainly a need there.
Um,
Super interesting. Okay. We are going to end on a rapid fire round of some questions.
go.
Not to be too scary. Okay, first one. Most surprising reaction you've ever gotten to your work?
I
I
think it's,
guess
I mean,
let me clarify. As a rapping CPA,
oh yeah.
probably not the most surprising reaction you've gotten to being an accountant.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, I mean, it's a lot of the times when I say like I'm the rapping CPA, they're like, "Oh, haha, that's funny." And then when I actually rap, and they're like, "Oh, you're actually a good rapper." I was like, "No, I'm not like I'm not just like making this claim." I was like, "No, I can professionally record. Like I come from a family of musicians. Like I played the drums growing up, so I know how to be on beat and on tempo and stuff like that." So a lot of people are shocked at like, "Oh, that's actually pretty good." It's not just like a nerdy song about like rapping about like, yeah, me like accountant. I was like, no, it's not that type of thing. It's a well thought out composed song.
It's a real thing. It's not like a professional sandcastle builder.
Yeah.
No offense if somebody is. That's probably something somewhere. Okay. Next one. One accounting myth that you're dying to bust.
I mean, it's got to be that accountants are should just like stick to the stuff that they're like technically qualified for. I think it's just a big misconception from business leaders, and the one that like really stung me the most was at one point I had asked about doing some different roles when I worked in public accounting, and I was interested in like advisory, and they're like, oh, well, the advisory people like they have MBAs, so that's why they kind of have a different pay structure, and I was like. I was like, well, first off, I have an MBA, but second, like I'm pretty sure like my skills that I've done in auditing are probably more useful than whatever the MBA taught, these folks who are in that area. And like it blew my mind that this was like a concept. It's like, well, they get paid more because they have an MBA. And I'm like, that's absolutely bananas. And I did work in advisory after I worked in auditing, and I'm like, this is the sloppiest work paper I've ever seen. I would like we should
Yeah.
just use our work papers, the ones that we made that are like super clean and like formatted and very easily to read and consistent across
Hmm.
the board, as opposed to they're just like, oh, yeah, we just kind of like throw stuff on a spreadsheet, and if it like looks good enough, it's for our own review anyway. We're just like gonna write up like, okay, everything seems to look good here. And I was like, that's actually monkey work. I was like,
Yeah.
that's
What
totally,
are we doing here?
yeah.
Awesome. Final one. I love this one, especially for you. Go to hype song before a speaking gig or like a walk-on song. What would that be?
Mm. I got like a few. It depends on I think like so when I played baseball, my walk-up song was "Rattle" by Bingo Players. Dun, 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 dun,
And
dun,
yeah,
dun, dun,
nice.
dun, dun. Right. So like that's kind
Yep.
of like the walk on stage sort of thing. But if I want to
Nice.
like get myself hyped up, I'll do like Aloe Black has like "I'm the man, I'm the man, I'm the man, I'm the
Man.
man." Yes, I am. Yeah, so I
Hmm.
kind of like I'm like, yeah, I am. I'm the man.
I
And then
like
there's
it.
this one song which has always resonated with me, which is Random by G-Eazy. And I kind of like emulate some of my raps by G-Eazy. And the whole premise of
Nice.
the song, I was like listening to the lyric because I'm a huge lyricist, and I'm like, yeah, it's like this isn't random. Like everything here was calculated, it was planned. Like and I what I've done with my career, which was making the public accounting anthem, was a very deliberate decision to be like, I'm going to expose myself to being a content person of accounting, is kind of like similar to his career path of like, no, he tried to work as a producer for the rappers, realized a lot of them were flaking, a lot of them were bailing. Is like, you know what? I'm just going to be the rapper on my own songs that I produce, and I'm going
Love
to
it.
study, music design and composition, and then just do it for myself and then go and create it. And so it's just like a very, this isn't random. It's all completely planned. So if that's all, of course, if I'm not walking out to one of my own songs.
I was gonna say, I'm surprised that wasn't it, but
Yeah. Yeah.
maybe
Ghost Tick Kill is my favorite. For anybody who works in audit, they know about ghost ticking.
okay. I love this. Love it, love it, love it. Awesome, Drew. This has been fabulous. Thank you for joining. How can listeners connect with you?
So depending on which part of me you're interested in, if you're interested in that like niche accounting humor, that's the Rapping CPA on all socials. If you're interested in more of my fun sketch stuff, that's Carrick Drew on Instagram, and then obviously the number one for everybody here has got to be LinkedIn, which is just
Always.
my name, Drew Carrick. So
Yeah.
you'll be able to find me.
I like it. Nice and easy. Thank you so much for joining us today. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, Em. Yeah, appreciate it.
Awesome. And a huge shout out to Hubify for sponsoring the Accounting on Automation podcast and supporting our Automates community. If you are looking for help with Stripe accounting automation or high volume revenue recognition, you can visit hubify.com. That's HUBIFI.com. And if you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe and follow so you never miss a future conversation on automation in accounting. And if you found this episode valuable today, please share it with a colleague or friend who could benefit from the insights as well. So we will see you all next time. Thanks so much.
Thanks.